This week on Maker Update, Tyler and Donald take a look back at a handful of our favorite projects of the year. All right, Tyler, thanks for joining me today for our annual, now a tradition, year-end collection of yours and my favorite projects from the past year. And Happy New Year.
Happy New Year to you. And yeah, like you said, these aren't necessarily, these are just our favorites. The ones that really got us fired up the most when we saw them and talked about them over the year. And so with that in mind, why don't you tell me about generative AI art for a Euro?
Yes, I will tell you about one of my favorite projects for this year, which was Niklas Roy's Generative Art €1 kind of arcade form of a generative plotter art machine. Niklas Roy, his work we featured on this show year after year. He's done a lot of really crazy projects with plotter art and spray paint plotter art. This one in particular was a new combination for me, which is like it's a coin operated machine. You plug in a euro and to kick things off, and then the machine goes into action, and it's using a repurposed Czechoslovakian plotter called the Artima Colorgraph, and it's tracing out a constantly evolving, generatively based line art. And there's a lot going on here that I love, but just start with the aesthetics. It's kind of like a Tom Sachs plywood kind of aesthetic, with the entire machine being this wonderfully kind of rough in all the right ways structure of plywood and kind of visible mechanics, everything. If you want to just geek out on what's going on inside the machine, there's no mystery here. You can look at it straight on, or you can go around the back and you can see all the guts, the computer, the Arduino, the plotter, everything all together. So it's wonderful to see, just from a curiosity, nerdy perspective, and also just the look of it is something that just tickles me. But it also has this Tim Hunkin aspect to it, where it's an arcade machine. There's the interaction in the sense that you're not just putting in the euro to watch the machine work, but because the art's constantly changing and evolving, you're also kind of picking the time that you want to drop the coin in. And once you've dropped the coin in, the art freezes, the paper rotates through, and you get to see it plot out your drawing, stamp it, cut it, and you walk away with a one-of-a-kind piece of plotter art on paper. And then from the maker's perspective of this, of like something I've never seen before, that I love seeing how this was executed in this machine. I've seen plotters work. I've seen kind of arcade interaction work before. But what I haven't seen is the way that the display is done here, which is essentially it's a off-the-shelf LCD screen display, but the backlight panel has been removed. The diffuser has been removed, and so instead he's using the paper itself. The roll of paper is running past the backdrop of the art behind the kind of evolving line art, and so the paper is being used as the diffuser, and then a light from within the machine is being used as the backlight, and it always kind of has this papery kind of look to it. And then there's this really cool payoff where it does the line art. It plots it all out, and then it brings it up in front of the LCD projected version of the art just to make sure it matches. And I've never seen anything work like that before.
I think my favorite part is the stamp itself. I mean, because we see so many different kinds of projects, but very rarely do we get to see humor in a project. And there's something absolutely hilarious to me about this kind of minimalist AI-generated art that then it self-authenticates its own art before giving it to you, saying, this is an authentic Niklas Roy original. You saw it here, No art dealer will ever tell you this is not the genuine article. Have a nice
Yes.
day.
Yes, and there's a lot of playful details to it. And I'll say it's AI only in the most basic kind of way because it's algorithmic in a way that this could have been done algorithmically maybe 10 years ago. It's not really using AI in the sense that we talk about it today, but it's algorithmically kind of randomly generated. But the playful aspects of it, yes, the stamp that you get so that it feels extra official when you're walking away with this thing. It reminds me of like the kind of like the penny smasher machines, right? That you'll run the penny through, and you just feel like it's got the real embossed stamp of the thing, the experience that you're having there, and it feels more official in that way. And you get to walk away with an original piece of art. Actually, I have one of them here, Artomatic Niklas Roy original here with the stamp. Yeah, that was a lot of fun. Great maker, great machine, great project. Absolutely worth your time. We'll leave a link in the show notes where you can go back and check out all these projects. By the way, if you don't know how this works, we've got all the links down here. All right, Tyler, talk to me about the pawn that can transform into any piece by Works by Design.
So this started off with a project that he made, I think last year. That was it was a chess pawn that, if you're familiar with the rules of chess, and I'm unfamiliar with most of them, but if you can maneuver your pawn to the back rank of the board, you can promote it into a queen, and now you have two queens, and that's a big deal because the queen is easily one of the most powerful pieces on the board. What I didn't know is that you can actually promote that pawn to any of the other boards, or any of the other pieces, well, other than the king. It's just the queen is the most popular one, because it's the most powerful piece. Works by Design created this pawn that would automatically promote itself to a queen. It uses a magnet that's embedded into the board that releases a catch, and it just kind of springs out into the, queen, the queen's greater size and kind of bigger protrusions. And he really wanted to do it like, what can I do to make it so it can turn into any of the other pieces? Now, this presented one limitation, because it's just not possible for it to turn one pawn to turn into any piece. But he could create multiple pawns, one that could transform into the rook, one that could transform into the knight, one into the bishop, and one into the queen. And the journey into like all the different mechanisms required to make that happen is a fun thing to watch. I mean, a lot of them are fairly similar, particularly the rook and the queen are very simple, or are very similar. But the knight in particular, because it is sort of this not rotationally symmetrical. It's not like something you could turn on a lathe. It's like this horse face thing. So working out the mechanism to do that was a really fun journey to see. And the other thing here is that, so now you have these different pawns that can turn into different pieces, but you can tell visually by looking at the pawn what it's going to turn into. So he's actually getting into modifying the rules of chess itself to accommodate for these pieces. And his solution was that it's actually the middle rank of the board where you can have where your pawns will transform into different pieces. And so then he brought it to this chess club in San Francisco, which is one of the oldest chess clubs in the world, and said, do you want to play my weird chess game? And people were really taken with that. I think so. I think it definitely put a lot of people on the back foot because it's a wildly different and dynamic version of the game. But it's just so much fun to see how he was able to transform all these pieces, the amount of engineering that went into it, and then also rethinking the game to accommodate for them.
Yeah, I feel like this is a total like victory lap for this project. I think it may just the pawn to queen one, I think may have been in one of our collections maybe last year for the end of the year, and that in and of itself was such an amazing project and a brilliant engineering challenge to overcome. just the spring-loaded, you know, collapsing of one figure into another, to then go and replicate that same success with all these other pieces, is incredible. And each one, especially the knight, each one posing its own challenge to transform one shape into another. It's super cool, and absolutely one of those things where, if you love nerding out about that first version of the video, to kind of have this opportunity to nerd out on how to refine that same technique and then expand it across these other pieces, is a really fun project to watch unfold. And that is, it's one that you have the opportunity as either a maker or a fan of chess or both, to get the designs. I believe he's got like a Patreon where you can contribute to that to get the files and make your own versions of them. So it really is an accessible project too.
All right. I can't wait to hear you talk about this next project, because I love anything made by this maker just because they create such cool, intricate, mechanical designs.
Yeah.
So tell me about the exciting smartphone case.
This was an exciting one to come across. Everyone, I mean, in the creation of this show, I come across plenty of channels where every once in a while, maybe once a year, there'll be like a video that they put out that is a contender for maker update. Or sometimes it'll be years. I'll just like find one maker that does one project, and just every once in a while they'll come out with something. This was on the KARAKURI channel, which has tons of great content. This is a 3D printed smartphone case that has just a whole little field of different mechanical movements for moving a ball bearing through different obstacles. It's kind of like a Rube Goldberg machine of movement. They did another one similar to this, I think the year prior, that was more like a random, like, where am I going to go to eat chooser, spin a wheel kind of system, which was also cool. But this one just mechanically is more intricate, and the action is the series of ball bearings that are kind of going through this maze. And to have it all fit on the back of a phone, I think there's something really appealing about that. Not only does it kind of make it accessible for people who are looking at it and wondering about the scale, or wondering, what would it be like to hold it or have it. You can easily visualize kind of the scale of this thing and how fun it would be to have something like that on the back of your phone. I also think it's an interesting design platform for makers to have some cool show-offy thing that maybe fits onto your phone case, something that you always have on you and is a conversation starter. But the other aspect of this that I really liked is how accessible it is in terms of design and 3D printing. I mean, obviously it's a lot of small parts. It takes a lot of patience to design something like this, but at the end of the day, it's you're talking kind of millimeters of kind of interlocking bits of plastic, and I think just one motor behind it all, like a little hobby motor. And it's, I don't know, it's not miniature in the term and in the scale of being like really hard to put together, like in miniature model making or book nook kind of stuff, but it is small and interesting in a kind of like a large print clockwork kind of way.
I know it sounds like a broken record sometimes when I marvel at, like, oh, here's what's possible with 3D printing now. But the fact that they can make this really intricate mechanism that fits on the back of a phone case and it's all FDM 3D printed is just, I was really shocked to see it.
Yeah. Aside from there being a lot of different filaments here and maybe like a bed sheet with the texture to it, there's nothing kind of secret or expensive to make a project like this, to pull something like this off, All right, and then let's kick things over. A relatively recent one that is definitely, I don't think it's going to be hard to pitch why this one's so great. The Impossible Lightsaber by Hero Tech. Remind me about the Impossible Lightsaber, Tyler.
So, okay, obviously it's not an impossible lightsaber because we're talking about it. But this is a project taken on by Hero Tech, who's been trying to make a replica lightsaber that he can use at Comic-Cons and things like that and other fan events. And his goals were, it has to be screen accurate, it has to be able to extend quickly on its own, and also be able to stand up to, like, you know, some light dueling with other fans.
Right.
And there are so many mechanical problems that he had to solve in this thing that's just, it makes you a little crazy. Because, so the mechanism by which the blade extends, and actually let's start with the screen accurate part. Okay. Because all of this is fitting into a replica of the original Graflex camera flash handle, which is what makes the original screen accurate lightsaber that was, you know, Darth Vader's lightsaber, became Luke's, all that. And so it all has to fit into this relatively tiny tube. And the blade is made of a thing that I'd never heard of before called a magician's cane.
Yeah, it was a new concept to me too. But, yeah.
And so this is basically, I believe it's like a spiral of plastic, the relatively rigid plastic that if it collapses in, you twist it and it collapses in on itself, and then it can all fit, you know, within a fairly small space. But then you can spin it out, and then it extends out and locks into place.
Yeah.
In there is a strand of this chip on board LED strand, so it's like a kind of a big, powerful version of like one of those LED noodles. Mm-hmm. There's a catch at the end so that can be reeled back in by the mechanism in the handle to retract it back in. He also discovered that you need to spin the blade, or else it doesn't look, the animation of it, because there's no way to animate the lighting in the lighting element that's in the blade, but if you spin it, it looks more uneven, like that telltale lightsaber crackle.
Yeah, it's got that kind of spitty, fiery, kind of crackly feel to it, for sure.
Yeah. I think there's like one or two other mechanisms I'm not remembering right now, but, you know, so it has to spin, it has to light up, it has to, and then when it's extended, because it's this, you know, cane material, you can whack it around a little bit.
Good one on the lightsaber, Tyler. Definitely worth checking out. The other one, let's talk about, I've got another one here. What am I talking about? Oh, the Dream Recorder. The AI Dream Recorder by Modem, a design company. The AI Dream Machine. Let's talk about this by a design company named Modem. This is a really interesting project. One of the main reasons, well, first of all, what the project is essentially a little box that sits by your bed. You wake up, whatever crazy dream you had, you tell it to the machine, you tell it to the little box, which has a Raspberry Pi and a screen inside of it and a microphone, and it will interpret the dream in a way that it generates, through the use of AI, a short visual reconstruction in its own dreamy kind of way of what you told it. And it does that using a combination of AI kind of video generation that's kind of locked into a particular style that's very dreamy on its own. And then another aspect to it is that it's in this all kind of 3D printed enclosure, this very smooth, neat looking 3D printed enclosure that further diffuses the screen playback, so it looks like it's kind of behind a gauzy curtain, and it adds to this dreamlike quality to it. I think it's a really cool project. I know AI and image generation in particular is a really divisive theme, so I'm not going to get into that, but I do think what's important about this project is that it's a use of the technology, a use of technology in general, that's doing something that we couldn't have done a year ago.
Yeah, I mean, it's this cool thing that's just like this appliance for dream journaling. because I assume it records and turns into text everything you tell it about your dream. So that alone is a cool little aspect to it. And there's always the question about with AI art is like, is it replacing an artist? In this case, it probably isn't, because at least for most of the dreams you have, maybe you might have one or two dreams in your lifetime that you might want to see. You might want to commission an artist to like recreate something from it. Maybe.
Yeah.
Not likely. And so this, creates a little piece of artwork for you that's kind of, weird and ethereal and in the vein of. So.
And it's really, I think it's only a few seconds. I want to say it's maybe like a 5-second limit on what it can even generate or create. So it's not like it's animating a movie for you or anything. But I recognize your point. I think the counterpoint to that would be like, one angle would be like, there's no way you could affordably make this and have it be made by, have the art be animated by a team of humans. It would be a billionaire's toy to have something that would do this. And then the other argument would be like, well, then that maybe it shouldn't exist. Then maybe it should be a toy that only exists for billionaires. Maybe we're playing with fire here. Of course, if nothing else, I'll harvest the comments people have on this particular technology and the use for it. Please let us know your opinion of it. I'm not trying to advocate for AI image generation technology or take one side of it, but I do think just from a purely creative standpoint, this is an interesting exploration of something that just couldn't have been done before. All right, now another notable project. Let's talk about David Blair's Light Herder. David Blair, this is a gentleman I believe that you and I have history with all the way back to the Make Magazine days, right?
Right, and this is a project that it's a thing that he's been working on for a while. And we've definitely talked about it before. I can't ever stop talking about it because it is so incredibly cool. So this is a physical machine that he uses, and physically operates by pushing these and twisting these two big push rods around. And this involves a series of cameras and monitors, and cameras that are pointed at the monitors, and they're also like a split lens, sort of like a Pepper's Ghost. And what he's doing is he's creating real-time motion graphics that look like fractals, and so he can add images to the display that get repeated, and because of that the phenomena you get when you take a camera that's output into a screen and then you aim a camera at that screen. So it creates this looping, infinitely looping effect that as he's zooming the camera in and out and twisting the camera and changing the aspects of it and the heights of the things, heights of the monitors, it creates this wild looping fractal display that looks unlike anything else. I mean, you could create these digitally in motion graphic software like After Effects or something like that. But the fact that he is physically doing it creates a human performance aspect to it that you cannot replicate digitally.
I love this guy's story. It absolutely is like a kind of an artist who's crafted their own tool specifically to achieve the thing that they want to do in the way that they want to do it. And I hear the argument of like, there's a lot of this that if you really wanted to replicate this effect, you could do it with all digital tools, maybe. But that the interface and the interaction and the way he's doing it and how it's totally dialed into the way that he wants to create these physically, it reminds me of the modular synthesizer community, right? Like you could do so much sound synthesis completely in the box of your computer. Now they've got recreations of every kind of synthesizer you can imagine that you can just pull up as software. But to be able to plug things in and out and turn knobs and have it be just the way you want it, there's just no replacement for that.
It's gorgeous to look at. The video output it creates is gorgeous. Yeah, and I love the actual physical performance
Yeah,
aspect
I
of
love
it.
having seen the different iterations of this over time. None of them seemed at the time like they were kind of rough. Like they all seemed really like well crafted, but then each one just gets so obviously better than the last in terms of the fit and finish of everything and the extra features that it's really fun to take that journey with him.
Let's talk next about the Dragonfly electronic wind instrument by CatWizard.
Yes, this is the we saw this at Open Sauce this year, right? Tyler, you and I both. This is one of those projects where like the project itself is like fun and novel. The maker behind it is, or the team of makers behind it are really great people who poured their energy into making kind of like the light herder, like the thing that didn't exist that they really wanted to have the way they wanted to have it. And so it's a MIDI compatible synthesizer or controller, right? In the sense that it doesn't necessarily make its own sounds. It's really made to be able to control sounds that or control MIDI signals that are sent to a computer or a synthesizer or a drum machine or whatever it is, and that's what creates the sound. Although I do think there's a speaker integrated into this design that can play back audio, but it's kind of like I want to say like a Zelda ocarina or it's a wind instrument, right? And it's rare enough to have like a MIDI controlled wind instrument, and it's even rarer still to have that wind controlled or breath controlled instrument be a totally novel form, not just like a recreation of what a saxophone looks like or a trumpet or whatever. It's this wholly new and novel design, and it uses like mechanical keyboard keys, so you get like that tactile feel, and you can just make it your own. You can kind of chord different voicings. You can change. I think there's like a pitch wheel kind of pitch bend kind of effect on it. There's all kinds of things that are already built into it that make it an interesting new kind of instrument to play. But again, because it's all 3D printed and available for your customization, you can make it do whatever you want it to do.
Yeah, the whole aspect of like MIDI being part of microcontrollers opens up so many cool possibilities of, how you can use both the input and the output aspects of it. So here's an instrument that you can create MIDI and capture that into your computer and make that part of your musical performance. And there's also lots of neat stuff where you can get the output from your music software into a microcontroller and use it to control all sorts of other things. The potential for MIDI and microcontrollers is so incredibly powerful, and I always love to see any sort of MIDI instrument created.
Two other things I want to mention about this project. One, I think there's a GoFundMe available attached to it right now to help push it to the next round or open the design. I don't know what the next level is for it, but there is some funding going around, which hopefully, if nothing else, will make it more. There'll be more documentation for how people can make their own. So check that out if you're interested. The other thing, just conceptually, as someone who plays music both on traditional instruments and I'm into synthesizers and digital music creation, I love this idea of having an instrument that like no one's going to tell you how you should play it, right? There's something so intimidating about picking up a guitar or some kind of traditional instrument where it's like there's already all this history behind how you should play it and how others have mastered it before you. It makes it hard to kind of get excited, but when there's something like this where it's brand new and there's no Jimi Hendrix of this instrument yet, right? That it makes it approachable and kind of fun to be like, maybe I'll be the best version, player of this instrument that the world's ever known. Or if nothing else, the pressure's off to be amazing at this instrument because it's no one else has played it. I like that. All right, let's talk about the recent addition. This was just from our last show, the Commodore 64 laptop by Kevin Noki.
Yeah, recency bias be damned. This is a project that I was just blown away by, and I cannot stop talking about it, so I won't. This is it took me a while to realize, like, this is basically a cyber deck. A cyber deck in the sense of, like, how we've always talked about them, that they're a portable computer that you made yourself. They're generally based around a single board computer like a Raspberry Pi, and that's what this is. But this is emulating a Commodore 64, which is obviously a seminal piece of computer hardware for so many people, because for a lot of people this was their introduction to computing, maybe their introduction to programming. And there was a portable Commodore computer. I can't remember the name of it right now. He briefly mentions it in the video about this thing. But no, he is making a laptop. And it works. He managed to create this thing that looks like it could have been built in the 80s right alongside the original Commodore 64, but obviously it was not. This is a brand new thing that exists today, only because he created it, and he added so many of the design details to make it reminiscent of the original Commodore hardware, including the case design. The case is all 3D printed, but with the addition of, like, the vents and the layout and everything. The latches that you release to lift the screen up is all 3D printed. There's also a ton of great tips for printing out parts that are too large to fit on your print bed, because he's printing them in pieces and assembling them. And there's a lot of really cool assembly tips
the
in there.
registration pins between the pieces. Yeah, that was really cool.
Yeah. And the other crazy attention to detail here is that he also, while he wants to expand it with some of the modern touches of a Raspberry Pi, like there is a USB port panel on the back of this thing, but he also includes all the original ports that you would use on a Commodore 64, like the 9-pin, I believe it's serial controller ports. There's the round connection that you could use to attach a disk drive or a tape drive. He wrote custom software to interpret the data from the tape drive, so that the Commodore can understand that. And I think the final touch with it was that he reached into his collection of discs for the Commodore 64, found his copy of Pac-Man, loaded it up in a Commodore 64 floppy disk drive, and it's feeding data into this Raspberry Pi, and he's able to play Pac-Man on it.
It's a great payoff. Yeah, I think what I like so much about this project is, like, it's this wonderful and rare kind of symphony of left brain, right brain going on, right? It's like there's such attention to detail on the technical side of things, of making sure everything works the way that someone who is a Commodore 64 fan would want to work, like this feature, that feature, make sure it's all, just as accurate as you could make it, as if you just yanked it out of the 80s and it would work to spec the way that you would expect. On the other little detail I liked was that he did, like, the water slide decals on all the keys, right? All the custom keycaps. But that I think he had, like, bought a printer specifically to get the slightly off-white color of the letters onto the water slide decals so that they looked like the Commodore 64 one.
This is also one of the crazy little details here, because, like, I used a laser printer at home. Obviously, if you have a color laser printer, you can get different toner cartridges. You can get white toner cartridges for your laser printer sometime. He could not find one, and usually they're really expensive anyways. So his solution was he just bought the white toner and replaced one of his toner cartridges with the white toner. So he made his own white toner cartridge. And it's just so many different layers of, like, I didn't know you could do that.
Yeah. Great. Yeah. Love it. So check that out if you haven't already. Again, links are all in the description. And I think we'll try to. I have a few tips that I thought were, like, I don't know, just tips that really, for me, and you got one in here too, or we have some that we have shared that were, like, I don't know, somehow spoke to this past year. Let's get into those.
I mean, you were the one who introduced me to Bottango, and this is animation software that really delighted me this year. Once I actually got up and running and started playing around with it. So what is Bottango?
I had the wonderful opportunity 2 years ago now to meet a gentleman named, I believe his name's Evan, from kind of is behind the Bottango Software. It's a specific software, free and available to anyone to use for animating animatronics, ideally, but it's a servo animation software. And it works visually on a timeline so that you can just kind of smoothly push and pull servo animations in a way that is kind of most visually equivalent to a timeline editor for, let's say, video software or music software. And it up until now, so many of the other ways that you would create complex animations for servos in Arduino were really code-based and kind of trial and error. To have something where you can kind of physically map servos to a controller or to curves on a timeline and dial in exactly the movements you want and have them be replayed and match them with audio and lights, and have that all be free to explore with and use has been a real fun thing for me this past year in particular. Steam, we're seeing more people use the software, and as we're kind of learning more about the tips and tricks and limits of what you can do with it. But
well, I mean, we also got a really great tip about this software from you, and this is the one that knocked down the barriers for me to get into it, because you rightly said, like, when you open up this software and you see the potential with it, your first idea is like, I'm going to create this really complex character with all the servos, and then you never get to the software because you're still stuck creating the character.
Do think that I think I posted on the Instagram, or maybe actually it's one of the shorts for DigiKey here, was just how to make like a little 2-servo, very bare bones, bare minimum. I think I call it like the minimum viable animatronic. If you just want to see what it's like to animate servos, you can use that technique. I think it is one of these blind spots where there are people who are really interested in animatronics and they want to make the full, like, Pirates of the Caribbean,
the Kiara Superman
or the
robot.
Superman robot, right? But yeah. It's a really deep end to dive into to get to that level. But to have something that's kind of like an on-ramp project for, like, I got 3 servos, what can we do with that? You can do something, and it is rewarding, even just to kind of bring a handful of servos to life in a kind of like a sloppy way. There's enough there to get a good payoff. So I encourage everyone to explore.
Yeah, it takes less than you think to create less motors and less points of actuation than you think to create a character with life in it. And then this software doesn't do it for you, but it gives you all the tools that you need to bring that character to life and see it move the way you animate it digitally. You also get to see it animate physically. It's so powerful in its simplicity, but it's in its elegance.
So check it out. Another product and kind of software combination that really, I think, got a lot of traction this year was WLED software and the Sparkle Motion line of boards from Adafruit, which there was other ways. I mean, WLED software, if you haven't used it before, is designed for, I would say it's designed for the ESP 32 or ESP, or the older is the 8266, or the ESP line of boards, to be able to have wireless kind of graphic control over a connected set of addressable LEDs. Does that kind of get it? But the hardware you'd connect to in order to get the LED strip connected to a power and data from a board, like a ESP type board, it wasn't all, there wasn't a perfect kind of all-in-one solution, or there were some, but they were kind of pricey or bulky. I think Adafruit hit on a nice little combination of hardware where it's just what you need, not anything more, and it's WLED software compatible. And for someone who wants to get into the WLED world of animating LEDs, and a great suite of projects that we've seen from the past year by Aaron St. Blaine over on Adafruit 2. This line of boards is a really great entry point for it.
And just to kind of round things out, I really enjoyed this tips video from Angus from Maker's Muse, which is 7 tips for 3D printed combat robots. Combat robots is one of those things that I've always wanted to get into, and also at the he's I can't remember exactly which class he creates robots for, but it's like the I think it's the 1 pound robot class. So these are
weight, right?
These are small, so they and you get 2 things out of this. One, that makes them a lot cheaper to build than the big ones you see on things like shows like BattleBots. But the other thing you get out of them is that the amount of violence that gets compressed into the motors that are in these things, combined with the weight of the robots themselves, it means that the hits are big. You easily see hits that where throw the robot to the other end of the arena. And
they can be really fast too. That's another thing with the lightweight; they can be quick.
Yeah, and there were so many surprises here. In like he designs all of his robot. The chassis of all of his robots is designed in flexible materials like TPU, and that's just because again at this scale, if you have a rigid material, it just shatters. And there's all kinds of really interesting tips in here. Like normally you would use heat set threaded inserts for your fasteners for the parts that you need to remove to service the robot. And he's like, nope, you cannot use those. They just pull out. Instead, he has a number of different suggestions for either embedding nuts into your print so that you use those instead, or threading all the way through. So many... Because he's been deep into this for a while. There's a lot of stuff in there that's not intuitive, but this is a guide to help you be able to make your first competition combat robot in that weight class, and it's
I imagine some of those tips would also transfer over to like 3D printed like RC car chassis designs, anything that's going to be taking a lot of abuse. These tips could be useful into having a more successful project.
Yeah.
And the last tip here, again, I think speaks to some of the animatronic stuff we've seen really take hold this year, is Will Cogley's latest version of his animatronic eye mechanism. It's for those who don't know, Will Cogley has a great channel, and he has kind of this bread and butter project has been his animatronic eye mechanism, which we've seen pop up on everything from like that Pikachu project to I want to say there's been at least a handful of projects I've seen over this year that just kind of copy paste that design and attribute it, but that the design has been used in so many projects as like, why would I go to the trouble of making my own version of this when there's this great already perfectly made version from Will Cogley that I could just plug into my project when I want servo-controlled eyes that move around. So he's made another refined version of this project that it's easier to print, it's easier to assemble, the movement is even better and more realistic, and it's just one of those resources that as he keeps improving it, I feel like it's incumbent on me to keep letting people know that this is out there for any project that you might want to make, be it for Halloween or for an animatronic robot or whatever it is. If you want little eyes that move around, that are servo-controlled, and a great 3D printed, simple way to get that done, we'll put out a new version of his file and share them for people to download, and that's a great resource for people.
Yeah.
All right. We did it, Tyler.
We did
Another
it.
year down.
We made it.
I'll take this opportunity to, as always, wish everyone who has been liking and commenting on Maker Update over the past year. I see those likes. I really appreciate it. It really means a lot to Tyler and I. We're watching every week, and we appreciate the comments, and we appreciate you watching. And of course, always a thanks to DigiKey, as I like to say, for making this show possible. Thank you, DigiKey, for another great year. And if you, the audience, has a project of your own that you'd like us to see, by all means, let us know. Get in touch with us. I'm Donald at makerprojectlab.com. You can find me there. Or you can leave a comment and I'll follow up with you there. And if you have a favorite project of this past year that we didn't mention here, and there's plenty of other great projects we had to sort through that didn't get mentioned here, let us know in the comments, because we always like hearing your take on things. And by all means, these were not the objectively best, grandest, craziest projects of the year, but these were just some of our favorites for Tyler and I that we wanted to revisit and share with you and dive into a little bit deeper than we usually would on our show. Thank you again for watching. A happy new year. We'll see you soon. And that's all I got. We'll see you probably next week.
All right. Yes, you will. And in the new year. Take care, and thanks for being here with us.